Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today I wanted to give you some updated information regarding the Apollo specifically, as well as the medical gameplay that's planned in the game that was discussed in CIG's latest Q&A. So let's go ahead and start off with the Apollo specific questions, starting with if the Apollo has anything about it that will allow you to get rid of players who refuse to leave after you render your services. And the answer was that there's not really like an ejection port or anything like that, but players were just going to have to find a way to be able to do this. Now, what I would probably suggest is that you take the weapons from anybody that you're offering to heal and hold them until they're basically on your ship and you're feeling pretty good about the way that things are secured, and you escort them off of their ship. When asked if the Apollo can do search and rescue like the Terrapin or the Cutlass Red, both of which had that listed in their brochures, the answer was that those two ships actually come with medium scanners, where the Apollo comes with a large, like the Carrack. So it can actually do the job probably even better with increased range and spread. That being said, we did get confirmation that there's no plans for other variants of the Apollo as well, so don't expect to see a dedicated search and rescue version, but keep in mind there's probably a lot of crossover between search and rescue and medical anyways. Now, there was a question about if there's anything the Apollo can't fix up medically that the Endeavor can. And we get confirmation that if you have the Tier 1 beds, you're going to be able to do whatever the Endeavor can. But you're going to have far less capacity ability than the larger Endeavor, considering you're only going to be able to have two beds on two Tier 1 beds on the Apollo. They also confirmed that if you have the Tier 1 beds, you can do respawning for players who died in the Apollo, just like the beacon option they've talked about with the Endeavor. The Apollo is currently listed as 2 crew because it has 2 beds, so they asked if we were basically going to have a pilot and a doctor. And as expected, or at least should have been expected, the answer is that you're going to have the flexibility to do however you see fit. You could have 2 people that plays doctor, one that knows how to fly. You could dedicate the roles. You could even let the ship fly in a straight line while both are helping. What I actually see happening on not too long range of journeys could be that you might end up actually running with 3 crew, even though you only have 2 beds. Since there wouldn't be anything stopping you from doing that, which would then allow you to have one person flying and scanning while the other 2 worked on patients, 1 for each room. That also depends on how much business you're going to be getting into as well, because if you're not doing a whole lot of business, you may not want to pay 2 doctors in the back. Okay, so we also compared, or I guess we already compared to the Endeavor, but when we asked about how it compares to the medical bay on something like the Carrack, the answer was that the Apollo can do more and hold more injured people than you'd find on a non-medically dedicated ship like the Carrack. The ability to swap to a higher tier bed also means that you have more capable healing options on the medically dedicated Apollo. We get confirmation that you cannot remove the med base for cargo, so you're still limited to the 28 SCU. And also in the category of using the Apollo for not medically designed roles, they asked if you could use the drones for bounty hunting purposes, and it was said that you could technically pick somebody up in the drone, but it's not a restraining cell. So if they end up getting into your ship and are healthy, you need to find a way to keep them restrained and from not hurting you. Moving on to just purely medical questions that were there, we'll start with what that experience is going to be like when you're playing Doctor and how interactive that's actually all going to be. And they said that it's not fully mapped out what that gameplay is going to entail, but it's not just going to be a push of a button and the bed does everything for you. Essentially, you're going to need to do some of the work, much like you have to do with mining today, to where it's going to be a skill-based profession. Now, for the player side, the person that's actually being healed, are you basically going to be stuck doing nothing while you work on them? And when you're picked up by a drone, you're expected to be immobilized, which kind of makes me think of Han and Carbonite. You're also going to be immobilized during the healing process too. But they do say that if it's too boring, which it will be depending on how long it takes to complete, they're going to review it and make sure that it's not too tedious. We get clarification that you're not going to have NPCs just randomly spawning into your ship beds needing help, because they don't want it to be creepy, just having wounded people showing up screaming out of the blue. And they also want it to be an interactive process, so you have to use the drones. If you have a player who you heal and that person doesn't want to pay, what can you do? Well, they're planning on doing this in more of a prepay way. So maybe as you capture them in the drone, they get offered the option if they want to actually pay out if they're conscious. If they're unconscious, it may actually just be automated. We're not really sure yet. But it's likely all going to be a part of that beacon system, though you can probably end up bypassing that for those people that are actually going to be in your party, or maybe you just set the cost at 0. Someone asked about capital ships, most of which have medical stations, and what type of beds that they're going to have, and if you need to rely on having a medical ship supplementally to your capital ship. And it really depends on the specific ship, which was the answer, and probably the expected one, considering those aren't completed yet. The other issue, though, is the sheer size of the crew on these ships. And if the ship is experiencing difficulty, you're going to have lots of injured people, that functionality of the med bay may not be working, so you might not be able to provide support. So having an extra medical ship around could be a smart move regardless, especially with the already high cost of operating capital ships anyways. We got confirmation that they aren't planning on allowing you to use medical beds as a log-off location in these ships. There was an interesting question, though, about the Apollo, but it actually applies to all of the medical ships, and that's if there would be a cooldown between respawning ability for players. And they said most likely yeah, because they want to help cement the importance of staying alive, but there's going to be other factors too, like the supplies of consumables on medical ships dwindling and preventing the ability to continue to treat people that are dying frequently. A more complicated question was asked about damage states and what it takes to really get there, and there being a concern that with more severe injuries, it sounds like the time to kill would increase drastically, which isn't really a fun FPS experience. Now, they said they plan on increasing the time to kill, but are going to continue to monitor it as that changes. But I think it is important to remember that we don't have the more advanced injury system in place today. So players may take more damage, but they're going to be much less combat effective. And that also ends up making people less likely to die, which I think is a good thing, with extreme consequences associated to dying. Now, when asked about the high G-forces, and do the patients, what happens to them in the beds, they said that the patients need to be in a secure state, so the beds are designed to counteract some of those features. However, explosions and big events are a different story. And some of this is naturally kind of avoided anyways with the existing design of having people strapped in, better able to deal with the stressors of flight. We had a question about if you can set your ship to not actually accept people that are trying to spawn in medical ships. And the answer was that if they're not in your party or friends list, you need to retrieve them using a drone and through the service beacon mission system. That being said, if it is a party and the scenario for a respawn is met, they're actually going to show up on your ship as an option to respawn. I'm actually a little bit surprised by that. I thought we read somewhere else that there was actually going to be design that allowed you to kind of set your ship as a spawn location. I wouldn't think you'd really want to leave that to just friends and party, but who knows, maybe that is a good thing and I'm just not considering something. And finally, we get confirmation that your consumable med supplies are stored in your cargo hold, but they want to give you the option to use like standard cargo as well. So basically, if you want to be able to just carry a little bit of med supplies and run cargo to get supplemental income, you can do that. So there you have it. That's the latest update on the Apollo and the medical profession. I'm not sure how much I like the idea of restricting players much that are being healed, but I'm sure it'll end up being balanced to provide entertaining gameplay. Other than that, I'm still a big fan of this ship, and it seems to be in a pretty good design place and heading in a good direction, so thumbs up there. If you guys have questions on any of this, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for a lot more coming soon, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Take care.